Hello and welcome to Skeptics in the Pub Online. We're a friendly online gathering of curious people who want to view the world and its mysteries through a lens of plausibility and likelihood rather than a lens of optimism and easy answers. My name is Andy Wilson, or InKredulous on Twitter. I'm from the Merseyside Skeptics Society and also a co-organiser for QED Conference. Each Thursday during the pandemic, we've been bringing speakers to your screens to inspire, astonish, and swear at you. And tonight is no fucking exception. If you want to check out our previous talks, most of them are on YouTube. Just search for Skeptics in the Pub Online, and you'll be faced with approximately 85 hours of fabulous content. And that should keep you busy until the third lockdown. If you like what we're doing, be sure and you want to send us some money, hit us up at sitp.online/donate. Also, if you want more chit chat after the show, you can head over to our virtual pub, the Lock-in's Razor. That's also at the sitp.online URL, but this time just click the link for the Lock-in's Razor and you will be in. Next Thursday, we have Elliot Higgins talking about how to hunt Russian spies from the comfort of your own home. And, you know, these talks are fine, but sometimes what you really need is a bit of light-hearted bants, peppered with fumbling guesswork and the humility that arises from showing your ignorance in public. So welcome to InKredulous, episode 51. InKredulous is a skeptically themed panel show in which we like to have only the most prestigious guests. While we wait for that to finally happen, let's meet the panel. Kat.
Hello, I'm Kat from the Merseyside Skeptics Society, and I'm also usually one of the organisers for Skeptics in the Pub Online as well.
Marsh next.
Hello, I'm Michael Marshall from the Merseyside Skeptics Society and Good Thinking Society. And Andy, I quite like that you define skepticism up front there as being against optimism. So coming in hard for pessimism early on. I'm here. It's 2021. I'm here for it.
I fucking hate optimism. Dave.
Hello, I'm David Anick. I'm a magician. I have hosted QED in the past and performed there. And I've run out of things to say.
I'm Bryce.
I'm Bryce Blankenagel, host of Naked Mormonism and Glassbox Podcast, amateur Mormon historian, also a member of the John Whitmer Historical Association Article Awards Committee, but absolutely holds no relevance whatsoever to our conversation today.
That's perfect. And don't pay any attention to how brief everybody else is. You just take your time, mate. Now, we have 3 rounds for you tonight. Round 1 will take us to a 15-minute break, and then we'll return with rounds 2 and round 3. And our incredulous audience will be playing a big role in round 3. But we begin, as ever, with Topical Tales. And going first is Marsh. Marsh.
Hello.
Who is in an existential tug of war between the past tense and the present tense?
Well, Andy, what I like about this story, thank you for giving me this story to talk about. Obviously, we have an American on the show. We have an expert in American politics, and you've already seen his entire resume. So he's really talked us through all of the expertise. So obviously, you turn to me for the political discussion. But this whole story, Andy, this is the news that Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, is refusing to acknowledge that he is the former president of the United States. It was a story that I found on the MSNBC website when you sent me it, and it was headlined. The 2 words Trump cannot bear to hear. Now, I know what you're thinking. The 2 words Trump can't bear to hear are almost definitely fresh vegetable. Read this or Eric's here. But it's actually not about any of those. It's none of those things. Apparently, the words he can't bear to hear are former president. And this first became apparent when he was impeached, when he's been impeached, and his official announcement of his legal team came in a press release with the headline that read, 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, announces legal team. And in it, every single time it referred to Donald Trump, it referred to him specifically as 45th President Donald J. Trump, never the former president. And I think what he thinks is he can stop it being true if he never lets anybody say the words former president. He can just hold off reality like a kind of reverse Candyman, that if you say former president too many times, he will just disappear out of existence. He's trying to hold that back. And this is just yet again, so he doesn't have to acknowledge that he actually lost an election. That's all this is. And it's remarkable the length that he's gone to avoid having his feelings hurt here. Because he's refusing to accept that he lost the election for almost 6 months now. So far, he's been refusing to acknowledge he's no longer in charge since January, so knocking on for 3 months. And it's like he's trying to George Costanza the White House. Like, if he just keeps turning up, they'll just let him carry on working there. I think that's what he's thinking here. And the remarkable thing is other people are joining in. Like, his lawyers pretend it's true to avoid upsetting his feelings. And then elected senators and congressmen pretend they believe it. About 30% of the American public is playing along with it just so Trump doesn't get his feelings hurt. Several hundred of them stormed the Capitol rather than admit that he lost. And it's like America is that Twilight Zone episode where the whole town is terrified of the child with psychic powers, except he's not a child and he has no power, and they're terrified all the same. This isn't normal. Right, in case anyone was wondering, this is not normal behavior. Barack Obama hasn't gone out of his way to avoid being referred to as the former president. Even Mike Pence is comfortable with the label former because he opened a new office of the former vice president. I mean, I'm not sure what he's going to do with his office of the former vice president. Presumably just wants to know he's got somewhere safe to hide the next time Trump sends a crowd of supporters to lynch him. That's the only thing I can think he needs that office for.
Should call it a bunker instead.
The thing is, I'm not even that sure I know what a vice president does anyway, because it seems like an odd role in that it's got almost zero power, but then might unexpectedly have all of the power. Like, it's strange to be the most unimportant organ of the state until an emergency happens, at which point you become the most important organ. It's like the political appendix, essentially. It's like most of the time you don't want to think about it, but there's an emergency and suddenly it gets all the focus. But the appendix isn't an ideal analogy for Mike Pence because, in his case, he's aggravated, fetid, and full of shit when he's functioning normally. So he differs from an appendix that way. And the thing is, right, I'm a little nervous about talking about politics at all in InKredulous because the last 2 episodes that we've live streamed had a really weird effect on international politics. I don't know if anybody else noticed it, but the first show we live streamed during the lockdown, I talked about the self-help guru and would-be free speech champion Brian Rose and how he was promoting anti-vaccine propaganda as a way to sell his shitty business courses. And since that episode went out, Brian Rose has decided to run for mayor of London, and he's currently second favourite with the bookmakers. That's the power of InKredulous. And the last episode I was on, I talked about a guy called John Mappin, who was the QAnon-believing, Trump-supporting hotel owner from Cornwall. And Mappin was one of the guys who created Turning Points UK, which means he's the reason that so many white, male, fedora-wearing members of university atheist groups have become so insistent on telling us about the race differences in IQ and how there's just some jobs that women just are genetically not suited to. So we can thank him for that. But Mappin also runs the Dutch Green Business Group, which is an environmentally conscious investment group, which last week appointed as an advisor the climate change denier Nigel Farage. That's what happens when InKredulous gets political. The world listens and then responds weirdly. So we've got to be careful here.
Marsh, you're making me feel so proud.
You've got a lot of power, Andy. This is the power that you wield. Bear it in mind. Anyway, back to Trump. So Trump recently released a brand new website, 45office.com, which to me sounds like kind of an office where retailers rather than the website of a former president of the United States. But it's there to celebrate all the greatest achievements of the 45th president of the United States, every single one of his greatest achievements. The website contains 1,500 words total, which is, admittedly slightly more than Donald has ever read in one sitting. So it's got that going for it. The majority of the site are just pictures he's chosen of himself, but the good stuff is on the About page. And Andy, could you bring up the About page?
Sure, yeah. Matty, can you bring it full screen, please?
because this is what I love about this. This is genuinely the about page here. So we've got it opens here with Donald Trump saluting the brave men and women of the latest Skittles advert. They've done such brave work. I'm kidding, of course. This is actually the U.S. Navy's Power Ranger division. They just got back from defeating Rita Repulsa's latest monster. This is the list of his accomplishments. One of the things he lists is the time he told the Power Rangers to put all their vehicles together into a big robot so they could use that glowing sword thing. That was his idea. Trump's a massive fan of the Power Rangers. I think his favorite is the White Power Ranger. Big fan of that. Enough of that website now. I'll just talk you through a few of the things on it before we close here. So the bullshit on this website is just a real thing to behold. Right? Apparently, this is the achievements of Donald Trump. Through civic engagement and public activism, the office of Donald J. Trump will strive to inform, educate, and inspire Americans from all walks of life as we seek to build a truly great American future. So he's promised to build a truly great American future. But really, he's just going to build a very small section of it. That's barely a fraction of what he promised. And the entire thing is going to be built entirely on the back of immigrant labor. So he's going to be consistent with all of the stuff there. He goes on, he says, the forgotten men and women of America were forgotten no more because we finally had a president who could put America first. And is it me, or is it funny how it's always the forgotten men and women who get all the attention when it comes to politics? Like, it's always they're first in the line when it comes to politicians handing out attention. Just once, I want a politician to have the boldness to be the champion of the remembered. Put them first. The remembered, they're always getting left behind. They never get mentioned, the remembered. It's always the forgotten men and women. This 1,500-word essay is remarkable, right? It claims that Trump unleashed American energy by heroically tapping into national oil and gas reserves. And
did he use the word heroically, Marsh?
It does. Maybe not in exactly that point. I'm pretty sure the word heroically is in there. If not, I'm reading between the lines. It's very heavily implied. But you've got to hand it to Trump, right? Because it was an absolute political masterstroke for him to convince all those dinosaurs to die in American soil 300 million years ago. That was utterly genius. According to Trump, his America also, as well as doing all this with oil and gas, it also led the world in reducing carbon emissions. And, people might think that's bullshit, but they're not taking into account the fact that Trump is just playing the long game. He was playing the long game the whole time. Because under Trump's management, 550,000 Americans died of COVID, which means they won't be around to emit any carbon in the decades to come. That is the long game. It's an investment in the future. You can't emit carbon if you're not breathing. He's thinking about these things.
And potentially, if you bury them the right way, they could be the next generation of oil and gas.
There we go. It's investment in the future. The man was a visionary.
Oil and gas came from plants rather than animals. # just saying.
Yeah, but
sorry to
one, that may or may not be true, but 2, InKredulous is not the place to bring facts. So let's leave that right now. Let's stop all of that. One of the other great things about this 1,500-word essay about how great Donald Trump was during his time in office is that the last 500 words are all dedicated to how good Melania was when he was in office. So a third of this is about his wife. And even then, half of the bit about her is just where she was born and when she was born, that she started modeling at the age of 16, moved to America in 1996, and that she was named Woman of the Year by the Police Athletic League in 2006, 10 years before she was the first lady. This is all part of Donald Trump's accomplishments. It includes the line, during her time in the White House, she became an ambassador for kindness. This is... Not only is that bullshit, it is elite level essay padding. That's how you pad out an essay. It's how you pad out a resume. Like Bryce could take advice from this level of resume padding. But right.
I'm not verbose enough. I need lessons. Yes.
But I was thinking about this bit, and I think we're actually looking this whole thing the wrong way. Maybe Trump insists on being referred to as the 45th president of the United States because that's his ranking. If you put the presidents in order of competence, he's the 45th president of the United States. If you put them in order of intelligence, he comes 45th. In order of integrity, he is 45th in that list. Like, he's even the 45th president if you look at him in terms of effectiveness. And bear in mind, that puts him below William Henry Harrison, who died in office after 31 days. Because at least Harrison accomplished that. If Trump had the good grace and sense of patriotism to die a month into office, we'd all be looking at him a lot more kindly right now. But he didn't, unfortunately. And as it is, he saw out his first term. He became a one-term president. Presidents who fail to get a second term, they're often judged harshly by history. They're the unwanted men, the wrong men at the wrong time. But if Trump does feel that way, I've got some pretty good news for him, I think. bear in mind the political influence that InKredulous has. I don't think Trump is going to be a one-term president. I think he's going to get a second term. It's just his second term will be a jail term.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Fantastic.
I wonder if it would be possible to coax them into a prison, but tell him it's like Big Brother, but just about him. Like that way, or even just fucking put him in Big Brother that is just about him. That way he gets complete focus of attention. One-man show, constantly on TV, and he's fucking contained. Yeah,
we know where he is at all times. The level of safety of the average American hugely increases at that point.
Yeah, just don't switch the cameras on, or do, but don't transmit it.
Name an entire wing of the prison.
Solitary confinement as a positive. Yeah. Sorry, Bryce. Sorry.
Name a wing of the prison after him, and then he'll call it Trump prison.
Yeah.
And
just invite him in to cut the ribbon, and while he's in, you just slam the door shut. It's like those mouse traps, essentially like a humane mouse trap. It's just that, but for idiot ex-presidents.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I am genuinely hoping this will be the last time we ever discuss POTUS 45 and his enormous ego. I wanted to include this story because in many ways it represents what we've all witnessed too many times. The unpleasant scene has played out in schoolyards as long as there have been schoolyards. Pouting, privileged, bullying pricks who don't have the character to handle a loss of face. A character flaw as profound and incurable as the dog eating your tax return. Next, we're going to Bryce. Bryce.
Yes.
Is the Mormon Church a smart investor?
Oh, okay. First off, careful with the slur there, Brother Wilson. Okay. But to answer your question, yes, and it would be very nice if people would just let the church have its endowment in peace. Unfortunately, that is not the case. But you see, in America, we have this really weird legal system that's called pay to win. Recently, gamers have been very up in arms about this. So as Alexis de Tocqueville spins turban-like in his tomb, lawsuits here are a rich man's game. So what are we little plebeians to do when the wealthiest religion, nay, the one true religion, misuses charity funds, allegedly? Well, we just simply wait for an apostate to sue the church, the one true church, because, he's an angry apostate and, he wants to hurt the Lord's kingdom. Needless to say, a little bit of background here. The one true church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, trademark, is obscenely rich, like poop tons of money rich. It's quite impressive. You see, in 2019, in December, a whistleblower, another critic, he complained to the IRS that the church is sitting on a nest egg of $120 billion. Now, $120 billion. This guy used to actually work for the church. So, there's a flippin' Judas around us somewhere. And you might be thinking, $120 billion, holy headless shiz, that's a lot of money. And you're right, but, as we all know, 2020 was a great year to be a mighty and strong company with a very aggressive investment strategy and, crap loads of money, right? So the Lord has seen fit to give his one true church stewardship over more wealth than any living human being. And the investments are actually pretty smart, too. You have, pharma companies, soft drinks like Coca-Cola, firearms, weapons manufacturers, big oil, big tech, the salt of the earth type of companies that the church is invested in. But all of that, of course, says nothing about the church, the one true church's land holdings, their hundreds of for-profit businesses, temples, chapels, cattle ranches, orchards, insurance companies, retail stores, banks, you get the idea. The seer stone rolls forth throughout the world. Now, this very whistleblower complaint from 2019 alleges that the one true church used their tax-free tithing money to build a shopping mall and to bail out their failing insurance company during the 2008 recession. And the response from the Lord's one true law firm, that money came from for-profit investments, not from the billions that the church takes in tithing.
It's completely
this
separate
whole
things, Bryce.
Yeah. No, the whole
things.
Peeing in the corner of a pool defense, and I'm sorry if that analogy was a little bit too crass, but talking about enemies of the church it gets me so fracking torqued. I don't know what to say. I can't control myself. So now the stage is set. Why don't we meet our actors? The Huntsman brethren enjoy just the Lord's blessings, both in Utah and internationally. John Huntsman Sr., may his soul rest in peace in the celestial kingdom. He was a textile mogul who also served as President Nixon's staff secretary. The previous racist dude who was basically impeached before this racist dude was impeached twice for corruption. Whatever. It's not.
I'm not sure he was definitely the previous racist dude. He was one of the previous racist dudes.
He was one of it. I mean, that could be all 45 of them. Anyway, not important. Anyway, so John's son by the same name was ambassador to Singapore under Bush and Clinton. He was governor of Utah for a single term. He was ambassador to China for Obama. And finally, he was Trump's ambassador to Russia, of all places. No collusion, of course. So John Jr. also ran for president of the United States in 2012, but of course we know Mitt Romney was called and elected instead, and then he wasn't flipping elected. But every anointed family like the Huntsmans has a black sheep, and here enters James Huntsman. Ugh, I can barely say his name without my countenance darkening. So James Huntsman has given over 5 million of the Lord's little blessings to the one true church, and he wants it back, gosh darn it. And he alleges, quote, the LDS Corporation repeatedly and specifically misrepresented that tithing funds would not be used for the commercial development of City Creek Mall, their shopping center, or for the bailout of a failing private insurance company. These false witnesses, he says false witnesses about the church in a legal filing. I can scarcely believe my eyes. These false witnesses repeated publicly by the LDS Corporation. It's a church. Come on, James. Were outright lies. This is not a case about faith. It is a case about fraud and corporate greed, end quote. Cheese and rice. He's just so angry. But wait.
Sorry, did you just say cheese and rice?
Cheese and rice. That's right. But wait. Why
did you say
really,
cheese and rice?
Come on, Andy.
I have to be delicate when talking about these things and keep my tongue bound.
I love that so much.
But James Huntsman here is really playing the part of the Lamanite, just murdering the pacifist anti-Nephi Lehites, because he also wants to take that $5 million of the Lord's money, I remind you, and give it to other so-called charities who do the bidding of Lucifer, like, trying to root out racism or trying to help the gays with their agenda. It's just so maddening, the adversaries' minions and their crafty sciences. But don't worry, I'm happy to be the watchman on the tower and bloviate for 12 minutes on a story that should only take 3 minutes. So, now that the poop has hit the pan, how likely is the one true church to win this lawsuit? Well, James Huntsman didn't file the lawsuit in Utah, so some California liberal justice is probably going to be the one to hear the case. It's kind of hard to believe that a Utah judge in good standing with the church would award millions of the Lord's money in damages to an enemy seeking the destruction of the kingdom of God. So, of course, he filed it in California. But with that said, good news for the one true church. When you give money to a religious charity, this doesn't apply to non-religious charity, but religious charities, which is all religions, in America, there's no takesies backsies. There's no recourse because churches are legally invincible in America as long as they're Christian. So this idiot apostate must not have seen what's at the bottom of every one of the tithing slips as he was paying his tithing every month, however much money daddy's money that was, because at the bottom of every tithing slip that you sign when you're giving money to the church, it says, quote, though reasonable efforts will be made globally to use donations as designated, all donations become the church's property and will be used at the church's sole discretion to further the church's overall mission, end quote. Now, what that mission is, and some people may view that as ominous, but I look at the other side of that coin and look at it as glorious, because the mission of the church is the same as the mission of every other church: world domination. Sorry, I mean that's a little bit too front, but the establishment of Zion, right? Zion, the New Jerusalem, built on the American continent. So how do you dominate the world? So how do you establish Zion? Real estate and big banks of motherfetching stonks.
Yeah.
We should, however, recognize the really awkward position that this enemy has put the church in, because either the one true church pays him back that tithing money and opens Kolob's box for every other apostate and enemy to seek refunds, or the church makes the legal case that they can do whatever they want with their money that they got for tax-free donations. And if you don't like that crud, then you could just fudge off and shut the front door. So I, for one, look forward to the Supreme Court ruling holding that religions can buy nukes with tax-free donations.
Cheese and rice, that's a good story, Bryce. So, do you have a handle on how much money the church does have overall? Is it this $120 billion, or is it a much bigger number based on all the properties and everything? Because this was just the investment fund, wasn't it?
This was just the investment fund, and how the word church works. And I'm going to provide a visualization. Picture, if you will, a system like a couple of pyramids, right? Two pyramids side by side, right? And I just choose pyramid because it's kind of how the hierarchy of the church is established. So one pyramid here is the church corporation. The other pyramid here is Ensign Peak Advisors.
Would you describe these pyramids as like plans or structures or some kind of something in that line?
Scheme.
One may choose to describe them that way. That would be intelligent to do. But, I'm just using it for visualization purposes. Anyway, so the corporation pyramid church, it takes in anywhere, well, it's based on estimates, about $7 billion a year in tax-free money into this big pyramid. But that far outweighs their expenditures, because they did it's really hard to run up $7 billion of operating costs when your business model is manufacturing hopes and dreams and thoughts and prayers. So very little overhead. So they take the money into that, and then they save up a whole bunch of money and then transfer it in lump sums to this Ensign Peak Advisors, which is a for-profit pyramid structure. And that is what does all of the investments. So that $120 billion in December of 2019 is all just this one little pyramid on the other side, the Ensign Peak Advisors. It doesn't say much about what's in the big pyramid, that's the corporation, which has all of the other for-profit businesses, all of the cattle ranches, all of the insurance companies, all of the banks, all of the retail stores, all of everything in it. It's just that little for-profit investment fund. And, 2020 was a great year to be a big corporation in America because our government was just pooping money at all of these folks. So I think 120 billion is probably on a very, very low end right now. I'd be willing to wager it's well over 200. But those are all just estimates.
It's just so much money, isn't it? The Mormon Church isn't alone in this, is it? Many religious organizations are super rich. For context, the NASA annual budget is $22 billion. So they could fund NASA with this small piece of the pie for 5 years.
Yeah, and that way they'd actually find Collab as well, so they'd be getting something back from it.
Double. And if you look at the wealth of any individual country, they have more money than 85 of the world's individual countries as well. It's pretty ugly, because they ought to be spending it, really, right? Based on the purpose that they state.
I believe Brother Romney said it extremely well when the story broke about the Ensign Peak Advisors. He said that he is very glad that the church is not only saving up for a rainy day, but for a rainy decade. And I think Brother Romney has some great elements of wisdom in that quote.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed, Bryce. Much appreciated.
I find this all really strange. Like prosperity gospel and all that is like a very American thing, and like the Mormon church just hoarding money or like embezzling it or whatever they're up to. Like, again, really, like, do American versions of the Bible not have that story where Jesus went apeshit at the moneylenders? Like, is that just left out over there? Or is that just written off as him having a bit of a bad day? Like...
He was doing it because they didn't have enough money. They were lending the money out at too low a rate. He's like, this is a terrible business structure. Can I describe to you some sort of plan that has a very much a smaller top than a bottom? I can draw you a diagram.
There's so little money on this table that I can physically flip it. That is fuck all money. You're doing a bad job.
Jesus really didn't like the gold standard. He wanted to build some credit into the temple. You know.
Oh, brilliant. Dave Anick.
Hello.
If my love of fast food moves beyond obsession to possession, what should I do?
Oh, I have an answer for you, my friend. I feel bad. I've prepared nothing quite so eloquent as the deconstruction of Mormonism and or the 45th, that dude.
Yeah.
So I've got something much more jovial and much more up my personal street to tell you. I must admit, when you said, "Oh, can you have a look at burgers?" I was like, that is one of my three. After pizza, burritos, there it is, burgers right there. And Burger King, which is the topic of discussion, has always been my favorite. I've always preferred it to McDonald's ever since I was a little kid. And Burger King are brilliant for a lot of different reasons. Here's one of them. In Japan, as of 2015, Burger King had 93 restaurants, which you might think, oh yeah, that's a few restaurants. McDonald's had 3,000. That's mad. And so Burger King thought, you know what, we're going to have to get pretty clever with the way we advertise stuff. And they did. They've done some truly dope stuff. Case in point, they've got a black burger. Have any of you guys seen the black burger that went around? Have you not seen that? Oh my God.
I've not seen the black burger.
I wasn't sure if I was just living in my own microcosm here or like everyone knew about this. So what they did was they dyed every possible aspect of the burger, like all of the food within the bun itself, jet black.
Oh my goodness.
Just for an absolute laugh. It was a great idea.
Was it shoe polish?
Was it? It wasn't. That would have saved them so much money. I think it was aubergine in the end.
I think it might have saved the money, but I think they'd have paid that money back in the long term. I think they're selling burgers would be made of
They've only got 93 restaurants. Any publicity is good publicity at that stage. Either way, it was so successful, they immediately followed it up with, get this, a red burger. Genius move. Right? It's such a good idea. And then they were like, right, no, we've got to go much further than this. Now, this stuff wasn't exclusive to Japan, nevertheless, solid advertising ideas. So they found, this is 100% true, right? They found people, and obviously there's a lot of these people because, the world, with tattoos, specifically of a Big Mac. That is to say, a McDonald's Big Mac. Now, you might think, they'd have a little tattoo. No, man, like full arms of Big Macs, right? Proper, absolute beasts, right? And none of them were even the kind of people who you'd look at and go, yeah, you look like you eat a lot of burgers. There were these, like, really, like, properly savvy people going, yeah, I respect McDonald's. Why don't you? And they had these Big Macs. So Burger King paid for 10 of those people to be flown to Brazil to meet one of the world's leading tattoo artists and offered to alter that Big Mac into the current promotional burger Burger King was selling for free. 9 out of 10 of them did it. Because why wouldn't you do that? That's amazing. Like, these people were like, I'm committed to McDonald's for life. They're going to pay me what? Yes, I'll go to Brazil. That sounds amazing.
If they had the Big Mac tattoo in their arm, what you didn't know is exactly where they had the chicken nuggets tattooed.
Just a little circle.
It's quite an obvious place for a hot dog, though.
How was there no fast food? Clearly, they're covered in fast food. KFC, the KFC crowd. Not only that, here's my favorite one. They also made an app, an augmented reality app. You know what that is, right? When you hold the camera over something and it changes something in real life. And what you do is you hold it up to a billboard, any billboard of a fast food competitor of Burger King, and it would visually set that billboard on fire. like how unsubtle is that?
That's pretty aggressive.
We're going to burn you down. We're going to actually burn you down. And then once the fire dissipated, it was Burger King's logo. Like, how can you not love this company? And they thought, right, do you know what? We've done everything. What could we do? Like, what has our burger yet to achieve? I know. We've yet to make it repel evil spirits. Now, that isn't an exaggeration. I want to make this really clear, definitively. Repel evil spirits. Turn the undead, if you're so willing as to be in the sort of D&D crowd. Like, that's their whole game. So they have literally made, I'm going to murder the pronunciation, but the Yakuyoki Whopper, the spicy Yakuyoki Whopper. And it is spicy. It is, in fact, the most spicy burger that Burger King has ever made, by their own admission. In fact, they've called it the spiciest golden flavoring in Japan, which is great, because famously, gold has no flavor. So I like that. Putting their eggs in a really weird basket to start with. The spicy Yakuyoki burger. Now, Yakuyoki is a really specific Japanese amulet. The Japanese are a big fan of amulets generally in their religions. What's the actual word that means a lot of... I forget. It begins with an O. Sorry, I've not written it. Oh, yeah. The Omaori, which covers a load of different amulets, all of which will give you different boons, you know, to your health or to your luck. In this case, specifically, they have chosen the one that repels evil spirits. I like the way they were like, hey, we could just make a lucky burger. Look, if we're going to go with some bullshit, we're going to go home. Right, I don't want to trip over a £10 note. I want to fight a fucking vampire. That's what I'm going to do. Speaking of, it is covered in garlic. That's also not a joke. I really think they were looking for vampires. But either way, you know, I can't prove that. That's hearsay. Nevertheless, even the wrapping on the burger, the paper, is covered in a sort of red and white design that's quite common of a druma, which is a round doll, again, commonly known in Japanese culture, although that one does just promote luck, right? Now, these are all beautiful things, and I fully enjoyed researching this story, and I'm very near the end of my tale. It's not a long story, it's just a fun one. When I discovered this, I thought, oh, you know, obviously make a burger, repel spirits, fantastic. Oh no, they went one beautiful step further, because you can't, I don't know if you've ever been to a fast food restaurant like Burger King, but you just don't get a burger. You can get a meal, right? You can get a full meal. You pay a bit of money, they give you all the trimmings. So you can get the 2021 Yin Metal Ox Good Luck set.
Oh, that sounds good.
Right? Doesn't that sound
absolutely sounds amazing?
I wouldn't buy that. I'm thinking about it. So... Right. Now, I'm taking this off a webpage at the PR Times. They themselves admit they used Google Translate, so we're going to have to go a bit loose on the truth of this. For 2,800 yen, which is around about 20 quid, something like that, about $26, about $27. You can get, so this is what you get, right, for that. Now, I don't know, like, every time I go to a McDonald's or something, a Burger King, obviously, I don't go to McDonald's, you get a burger, you get your fries, you get a drink. That's the game, right? For 2,800 yen, you will get one Yakuyoki Whopper, one regular Whopper, which is already great that you're getting two burgers, right? Straight off the bat. One 5-piece coconut shrimp. What the fuck is that? No one wants that. Like, no one wants shrimp or coconuts. 2 5-piece chicken nuggets, 1 order of onion rings, 3 orders of apple pie, and 3 hash browns, right? Which is beautiful. And you might think it ends there. Oh, God, no. Because this entire meal does not just now repel evil spirits, but all of those items improve your health, your game luck, your money luck, your interpersonal luck, your love luck, and just in case they haven't covered something, your overall luck. Have we got...
Doesn't that render the other ones somewhat, pointless? The overall one.
Is your health luck your overall luck? I don't know, mate. I don't know. Do you know what? Buy the meal and tell me how your day goes.
I'm getting on a flight to Japan. If you eat all of that, you're going to need
a lot of that health luck. If you have that entire meal, the health luck is high on your list of priorities.
Really, it's hitting me. It was that third apple pie.
I suppose, like, if you make the burger spicy enough, you could convince people that they are repelling evil spirits through their anus. Like, that's going to feel like a colonic exorcism.
Pouring out this. Like, and you're going to need it after you've downed all of those hash browns. Like, it's going to come out and be brutal.
While you're still chatting about it, shall I play that video, Dave?
Oh my gosh, of course! Please play the advert.
We've got the footage of the advert that they put together. I'm playing it without any audio, but just to give you an idea of the splendour of what they came up with. So, Dave, perhaps you could talk us through what's happening here.
I mean, quite
bit of a commentary.
The Burger King Power Rangers. Marsh has put Power Rangers in my head as a concept, even though they're all dressed the same. So these are prayer boards that they're about to set on fire. This whole ceremony is fairly legit as it goes. And what they are doing is quite literally blessing the burger. Because why the fuck wouldn't you do that? Like, if I'm going to find a spicy Whopper, I want to know this has been properly done, right?
Is this how they cook them in Japan? With chopsticks.
No, we're not going to make that assumption. Cook them with chopsticks. We just took that on a turn, didn't we? You should be the 46th president. So, so that's like the flame grill. To be fair, that is to mimic the flame grilling element of it. Yeah, but yeah, it comes up. Yakuyoki.
Oh, we'll leave that there. Fantastic. Nice one, Dave. Brilliant.
I'm glad you asked Dave to do a commentary there, because I was thinking, like, this is going to go over really well when this is just an audio podcast. Like, now, 30 seconds of silence.
All right. Well, Japan, thank you for that, Dave. That was marvellous. Japan is far from alone in harbouring food-based superstitions. So while we're on that topic, let's just talk about garlic in ancient Rome. Garlic has a deep-rooted superstitious history. Yeah, that was an easy segue. For example, Roman soldiers would eat garlic.
Andy, Jesus Christ, that's a warning.
Roman soldiers would eat garlic to give them courage. But what did the strategically minded Roman commanders also do with it? Is it one? I'm going to ask everybody to answer for this. Is it one, they created a kind of garlic paste with olive oil and garlic? This was massaged into the genitals of the generals. It's not clear who was doing the massaging. The garlic offered enhanced virility, which transferred into more aggressive battlefield choices, while the stinging sensation focused the mind. Or is it two? They planted garlic on the battlefield following a victory as a testament to the courageous accomplishment? Or is it three? In the same way as marathon runners eat pasta before a race to offer a long-term carbohydrate store, Roman generals would insert a couple of cloves of garlic in their rectum so they would last longer. This is in addition to chewing some like the other soldiers. So who'd like to have a go at this one?
Just to be clear, when you say they inserted garlic into their rectum so they'd last longer, do you mean last longer in battle?
Or is this... So that the garlic would degrade over a period of time.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I reckon it's this first one about the garlic paste, but the idea of it being massaged in to give virility, I don't think it was the garlic that was doing the virility. I think the massage had a big part to play in that. But then I think if you had just been virilely massaged, I don't know that would make you make more aggressive choices whilst in battle. I think you'd make a lot more defensive choices while in battle, given your more delicate state. So I think it's the first one, but I think it failed badly, and that's why they stopped doing it.
Okay.
I think it probably depends on whether it goes to completion, whether it would make you more aggressive or less.
Do you think just got them halfway and sent them out with blue balls?
Basically just edging them. I wouldn't fight anyone right now.
Do you have an idea on this, Bryce?
I'm actually going to go a different direction. I think that it was possibly a combination of number 1 and number 3. And when we're wondering who was applying the paste, I think it was the participants in number 3 who were helping to apply the paste to the participants of number 1. Okay. It's that whole getting, 2 birds stoned at once kind of thing.
Very good. Dave? It's your question. What do you think?
I really hope the answer is number 2. There were a lot of extremes there. It went from rubbing it on your dick, burying it, putting it up your arse. Whoa! What? I like the idea that all they actually did was just bury it on the battlefield after a battle as some kind of ceremonial, aspect to it. And then other people over time have gone, I bet they put that shit up their arse. I bet they did. I bet they did. I saw a Roman once. His dick stank, mate. Guaranteed that's what happened. I'm going to number 2 all the way.
The answer is, disappointingly, number 2. They planted garlic in their victorious battlefields. I don't really understand why. Having read quite a bit about it, I would not be in any way surprised at either of the other two either. Okay, thank you, Dave.
To be clear, you made the other two up. I'd be shocked if you were surprised by them.
True. That is true. It's all true. I admit it.
He just goes into an alternative state when he's writing stuff. He's like, he just goes into a trance.
Yeah.
And then later looks at his page and is like, fucking hell, I need therapy.
Kat. What I do in the privacy of my own home is my business, right?
But there's a very strong clue if you read the answer number 3 of the previous question.
But what is done in the privacy of your home somehow makes it into a worldwide internet broadcast every week. It's remarkable.
Kat, go ahead.
Well, yes, if you don't decide to make it an incredulous question, what you do in your own home, as long as everyone involved is fully informed, consenting adults, no one's getting harmed, what you do in your own home should be your own business. But as we sort of become more and more connected with the internet, and while the Internet of Things grows, we become more at risk of hackers stealing our data or remotely taking control of our gadgets. Now, it's one thing if a hacker starts messing with your thermostat or boiling your kettle or setting your robot vacuum cleaner off in the middle of the night, but there are some more intimate devices that could cause problems if a hacker gets control of. Let's talk about cybersecurity and teledildonics, which is the proper term for this.
Say the word again.
Teledildonics.
Pterodildonics, fantastic.
Tele, like telephone, and dildonics, like dildo.
Fair.
It's exactly what it sounds like. It's the broad term for internet-enabled sex toys. And in recent years, it seems that a few manufacturers have become quite sloppy on their data security aspect. And one of the latest devices to have really suffered from leaving its back doors completely unguarded is the Cellmate Chastity device by Qi.
Magnificent.
Now, before we go any further, I should probably just explain how this device works. So, one part of the device looks a bit like a metal D-ring. And you pop your cock and bollocks through there, and then you get like a plasticky, sheathy type thing. And it looks a bit like those plastic banana protectors that you can get. But it's got one big opening at the end and one little opening at the other end. And you gently coax your flaccid penis gently into the plastic tube. And once it gets to the top with the D-ring, you click it into place, and there you have it. You're locked in.
Can I just query the use of the word corks there? Is it definitely a coaxing thing, like you're trying to sort of like get a mouse out of the skirting board?
Come on.
It depends on how easily startled you're. Once you're in, instead of using like a padlock like some other chastity devices, this one is actually controlled by a Bluetooth using an app on your phone. Now, this is advertised as both a BDSM device and an anti-cheating device, and I really don't want to get into an area where we are shaming anyone, but this is fucking weird. Like, if you're considering locking up your partner's genitals because you're that worried about them cheating, I think you've got bigger problems than how quickly they can whip out their wank. You can have an awful lot of sexy fun times without an erect penis. And if you don't already know that, I feel quite sorry for you and your partners. But anyway, as a BDSM device, it is a really cool idea. You can give your partner access to the app, and then they can control the chastity device, and you can both play with each other, whether you're separated by long distance, by a pandemic, or both. But this device has two key problems. One, it doesn't have an obvious manual override. And 2, the quality of the data security on this is terrible. Meaning, theoretically, one could find themselves in a position where a hacker could lock up your cock without your permission, and getting out of it is not going to be a simple little hand job.
What if it runs out of batteries?
Also a problem.
Excellent question.
Where the battery pack sits. Now, there's a guy called Alex Lomas who works for the data security firm Pen Test Partners, and he privately flagged this issue up with the manufacturers back in May 2020. Unhappy with the response and the ongoing problems, Pen Test Partners went public with their concerns in October 2020. And the vulnerabilities of this device were made public. They were widely reported. There were stories about this on the BBC and on the BBC News website and on The Guardian. And then in January 2021, after these vulnerabilities got very widely publicised, a few owners of the device spoke to Motherboard, which is the tech section of Vice magazine, to say that hackers had remotely locked their device and that they'd received a text saying, "Your cock is mine now." And the hackers, possibly not with that intonation, possibly a bit more menacing.
That's how you would have
you
said
were
it.
way too delighted about that, Kat.
Yeah.
like you're just collecting them, like it was you. You just want to keep them all.
That for the best part of a year. I'd be over the fucking moon to say that to anyone at this. Let's not go down that road. So, yeah, they got these messages, and they would the hackers demanded ransom in the form of Bitcoin to unlock them.
You pay that. You pay it, right? There's no question about it. You pay it.
No gray
Give me
area.
my dick back.
Well, luckily, none of the owners of the devices report that they were inside them at the time. But it's still fascinating because these chastity devices are about £150. So
That's heavy.
the thing itself is quite light for comfort. But yeah, that's a lot of money for a toy. But so yeah, that's still pretty upsetting. You've just been locked out of your best new toy that cost you 150 quid. Not a good time. Then a couple weeks later, Vice ran a story reporting that one poor chap named Sam Summers lived through the nightmare scenario.
Love that they named him. Love that they named him. we got a photo of him now, actually. We'll just put it.
Interestingly, the people who say they were locked out of it stayed basically anonymous, but the person who got locked into it, very happy to be named. Yeah, Sam Summers, and I got my cock trapped in one of these devices. It was a bad time. So, according to Sam, what happened is he was sat with his bits in the device, and he received a text to say that the device had been taken over, and that the hackers were demanding about $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, which he said, "I just had it in an account, so I paid it," which is odd. Like, I don't know many people who I would expect to just have $1,000 worth of Bitcoin hanging around in a spare account, but perhaps if you're like really into cyber things, maybe you would. So Sam paid it, and he still wasn't set free. The hackers asked for more money. So he resorted to taking a pair of bolt cutters to the device.
To the device, thank God for that. You had it very, very worried there.
Bolt cutters don't cost $1,000.
Like, there isn't much room for error on this. Like,
Well, it depends on who you are, I think. I think
some people have more wiggle room than others, but either way, this is not in a brilliant area where you want to be sticking a pair of bolt cutters. But anyway, so he says he managed to free himself. He didn't get himself with the bolt cutters, but with some of the metal that came off, He did give himself a scratch. He said he's not left with any scars, but he says he did bleed profusely, but managed to get it in control without having to go to the hospital.
Oh my God.
But interestingly, in March of this year, it turned out Sam Summers was actually an Australian comic, and he'd made the story up about getting locked into this chastity device. And there is a YouTube video of this comic talking about, like, actually, you've got the video of the video call to the Vice reporter, where he's talking about getting locked in the device, and all the process of getting free. And in this YouTube video, he's bragging about how he got this ridiculous fake news story into Vice, as if he's some master troller. And in this video, he makes absolutely no mention of the setup, that the fact that the device did have security issues, that the security issues were widely reported, that some of the devices earlier that month had reportedly been hacked. And the journalist that he contacted at Vice was the journalist who had written about the vulnerabilities of the device and reported people being locked out. But then this bloke is on his YouTube video making out like he plucked this story out of his arse and managed to trick a journalist into running it like he's some trolling genius.
Yeah.
And his comments are absolutely full of praise for the guy. And everyone is, of course, baffled by the fact that Qui later released a statement to say that they had a new tech update to kind of like close up all the data issues. And they just take that update, that news from Qui, as being further evidence that Lewis is some funny fake news mastermind, which is really bizarre because it's like he's falsely reporting the story of his own false report. It's like it's a mess of bullshit here. But I think generally the moral of the story is that we need to be a little bit wary of high-tech devices, especially if you're going to insert yourself into them or insert them into yourself. Because a lot of effort may have gone into the development of the actual device and the manufacture of it, but the software development seems to be lagging behind.
Yeah.
You might find you no longer have control over your data or your own genitals.
See, this is the problem with the key to teledildonics is obviously penetration testing, and that's clearly what they didn't do enough of.
Very good.
One of the hackers involved in this expose was called Smelly. I really appreciated that. I did spot a follow-up article in which the manufacturer, called Qui, as you've said, Kat, they defended their device, and they said there are two possible solutions to the cock-in, lock-in. I made that little phrase up myself, but nice. They said something like that.
Give it to them. They'll want it.
Yeah. They have helpfully provided a YouTube video to show how you can do one of them. So, Matty, can we go full screen, please?
I'm going to guarantee right now there are more than two possible. There's a third solution that they haven't suggested. That is definitely a possible solution. It's not an optimal solution, but it is definitely a possible solution.
Okay, here's the video that they've posted to help you get out of the trap.
So do you want me to talk through this?
Yeah, go on, talk us through.
So basically, this is the bit that would be on the top. And you've got to take the casing off using probably a screwdriver.
Sharp implement, yeah.
It's some sharp implement, and you can just
push
the pin out with like the locking pin out. Another solution I've seen is you go for the bit where the microchip is, and you shock it with 3 volts.
Fuck that!
and that causes the motor to turn.
Dave, all I'm going to say is escapology is a very well-respected form of magic. if you want to branch out your career a bit, mate.
Well, I don't see any problem with that particular solution at all. Immediately below the video, in bold red writing, did you see this, Kat? The warning.
I'm not. On the YouTube video that Lewis
on the Qui website.
No.
Right underneath this video that I've just been showing, it says in bold red writing, warning, since it's always possible for our support team to unlock and reset your cellmate remotely, using the emergency escape option will void the warranty. A fine example of customer service. Alternatively, they've said that you can just contact the customer hotline or social media team. Now, that would be a good tweet. I'd love to see that.
There's not a lot of justifications in this world for a dick pic, but if there was one...
Also, cellmates available in regular and long. I love this thing.
If you can get it on Amazon as well, and like even without the data security issues, it seems like it's a bit crap. Like it does just randomly crash, and you're just like, cool, not touching my dick today.
Well,
hang on, I don't understand this, because surely the times that you've got it on are when you want it locked, and when it's not locked is presumably when you don't. So if it crashes and stops working, you just take it off, don't you? I can't imagine there's going to be many times when you've got it on but not locked. Am I being naive here?
If it's on and locked, and it crashes, it means you can't take it off.
That's
if
fair.
you decide it's uncomfortable.
The purpose of... without sounding like too much of an expert on this topic, the purpose of the device isn't to prevent you going with somebody else. The purpose of the device is to prevent you getting an erection.
Yes.
And so if somebody else in play, if somebody else has control over it, that's presumably the reason, according to a friend of mine. We have finished round one. Congratulations, everyone. We're going to go to a break in a moment, but first, David Glass tells me there's a couple of comments about my 70s T-shirt. I spent 15 quid on this. Do you mind?
In 1978.
Maybe. Quite possibly.
That was a lot of money back then, hey.
It was, yeah.
That's on episode 50 of InKredulous.
There's a comment here about Dave. It says that they signed up purely to complain about Dave's pronunciation of Omamuri and Daruma. And that's NJ Bartlett.
Cool.
So we're going to take a 15-minute break now. The time now is 20:04.
We absolutely could not have gone forward without that comment being read, Andy. Thank you for admin.
Just to let you know, you butchered my culture for the break.
Well, if anyone wants to call David a prick, I mean, Andy will also read that out, presumably, on the show as well, so we'll get to that.
I wonder how long we can stop us from going to the break for by just shouting over Andy.
Oh dear. We will be returning after 15 minutes, but we are having a break, but you are not, as many of you may have predicted. So this is your opportunity to shape the final round. Round 3 is called Pitch My Poxy Podcast. And it seems like everybody has to have a podcast these days, doesn't it? And many of the pseudoscientific topics of our skeptical attention are well and truly on that bandwagon and reaping the benefits, if that's the right phrase. In this case, benefit to them is all too often a detriment to somebody else. But in round 3, I will task each of my guests in turn to run a 45-second promo for their new Poxy podcast. What's the name of this Poxy podcast? Well, that part is up to you. Head over to SitP-online/ask to reach our page in which you can make those suggestions. Now, you and I know already how we love to see our guests squirm, so let's not make it too easy. We're looking for the name of a new podcast which you think might be challenging for our guests to host. For example, how about using ley lines for business advantage, or scientific astrology in medicine? You get the idea. And I fully expect your ideas to completely outshine my own examples. And then my guest will do the 45-second promo for it. Make sense? Cool. Now, remember when you post your idea that you can add your name, but you don't have to register or anything. Just click profile in the top right corner and fill in only the fields you want to. Then I can credit you. But anonymous is absolutely fine if that's your thing. While you're in there, upvote a couple of ideas as well, and we'll go through them in order when we run out of time. Remember, you can support Skeptics in the Pub online by donating at SitP-online/donate, and that helps fund the gear needed to keep this container ship away from the canal bank. And remember, next Thursday, we'll be back to the regular schedule with our next speaker, Elliot Higgins, talking about how to hunt Russian spies guys from the comfort of your own home. I'm guessing Tom Clancy turned us down. We'll see you in 15 minutes at, well, just less, at 20 past 8. Can't wait to see your suggestions for Pitch My Poxy podcast. Back soon. Welcome back to InKredulous, episode 51. You have been busy during the break, suggesting names for new podcasts, and I'm already laughing out loud at some of the questions these guys are going to have to answer. Keep upvoting your favourites. There's still plenty of time. You can even still make suggestions. But remember, when we get to it, we're only going to be choosing from the top, so your votes really, really count. Now, round 2 is called More the Fool You. Given that it's April the 1st, we will look at our own sceptical history of April Fool's Day. And I'll admit to being a little bit worried that these stories are more well known than I think. But we're going to have a go. And this round is multiple choice. And the first question is for Bryce Blankenagel. Bryce. In 1960, a professor named Hans Laub invented a revolutionary way to engage audiences in the cinema. In a moment, for extra bonus points, I'll ask my panel to jump in and tell us what they think this incredible invention from 1960 was. But for extra golden points with a Swarovski embellishment, let's have you at home throwing your guesses into the Twitch chat, please. What was the invention from Hans Laub in 1960 which deepened the engagement between audience and movie? But remember, no fucking Googling, okay? Now, while you're answering in the chat, which of my guests would like to have a stab at it?
I think the invention in 1960 to make the cinematic experience more interesting was to allow women and black people into films. I think that's what they did from then.
Fantastic. That's not the correct answer. It ought to be.
No, that was 2 decades later.
Well, I wonder if the audience at home has got it. Here is the answer.
Oh, okay.
Go on.
I was going to suggest smell-o-vision.
Okay.
Like having machines in the audience that like spout out relevant smells.
Okay.
I like relevant smells. That's a great way of explaining.
As opposed to just like, hey, Casablanca, did someone fart? Did someone just...
I smell cheese and rice.
Cheese and rice.
Does that smell relevant to you?
It's quite the olfactory segue, that.
We've had some answers in the Twitch chat. We've had somebody else thinks it's smell-o-vision. Scratch and sniff. How does that work? 2D glasses, a popcorn machine, and a chat channel. And the correct answer is...
So these are glasses you could wear to allow you to watch the film in 2D. Those are
a lot of people were turning up, taking off their glasses, going, I can't see a fucking thing. What's this?
Kat, you earn extra points. Smell-o-vision is the correct answer. If you nailed that in the Twitch chat, you should congratulate yourself, whilst also maybe reassessing your life choices.
Yeah, maybe celebrate by releasing a celebratory smell, as long as it's relevant.
Smell-o-vision was a real thing. However, what does that have to do with April Fools? Well, Bryce, what does it have to do with April Fools? One.
Go for it, Bryce.
One. If Hans Laub was a genius, he was a flawed one. The machinery involved was called the Centorama. He deliberately set the date for the first screening as April the 1st. The reason is simple. The machine couldn't be relied upon. He had an accomplice hidden inside the machine to manually spray out scent timed with the dialogue from the movie in case the machinery failed. This meant he could say, if challenged later, that it was part April Fool's prank and the machine would be ready for soon. Or is it 2? In 1965, the BBC aired on April Fool's Day a report on smell-o-vision in which Laub chopped onions and brewed coffee while discussing the adaptation of this technology to work through a TV set. Viewers rang in to say their eyes were watering or they could smell the coffee. This was a deliberate, light-hearted prank from the BBC and Laub, but some of the nation were convinced. Or is it 3? Such was Laub's pathological attention to detail, he wanted each cinema goer to have a personal experience. Therefore, each seat actually had its own smell-o-vision box. One of the projectionists, however, was a bit of a prankster, and with it being April the 1st, he obviously swapped out one of the scent liquids for smelling salts in 10 seats, causing small clusters of traumatised people to stand and move away from their seats in the middle of the film, disturbing the whole cinema. Laub was fucking fuming, and he always blamed this sabotage for the lack of interest in his invention. So, Bryce, is it the hidden accomplice with the spray, the BBC viewers insisting smell-o-vision was a real thing on the TV, or was it the simple sabotage with smelling salts?
So I love that you prefaced this whole segment by saying these are more well-known stories. So, we might understand. That assumes that I know anything about anything. And, well, all right. I'm going to go with, I think it was number 3, because, I mean, who hasn't worked with that guy? Right. who you like, all right, I got this thing. Let's make this thing do this thing and we'll make it happen. And that one guy is like, hey, I got a really funny idea because it's on April 1st. We're gonna do something that's gonna cause actual physical harm to people, and it's gonna be fucking hilarious. I'm going with number 3. So
you're saying it was a prankster swapping out the scent for smelling salts. Okay. Anybody else want to have a stab at this one?
I reckon it's the tricking his mate into getting into a box. Because no matter what happens, you have pranked someone. Either it's not a machine and it's just some bloke in a box spraying, or the machine works and you've just made your mate sit in a box for like 2 hours.
Really
it's a win-win.
That's meta. That's awesome. All right.
I reckon so. The third one, I'm not sure it's the third one, because you said about how these people, their seats would have smelling salts, and you said traumatized, the people would stand up and move away from their seats. And that does not seem like a trauma response to me. It's to just calmly stand and walk a couple of feet away from where you were sitting. I wouldn't describe that as a traumatic response. So I'm not sure about that. I reckon it's that thing about the BBC broadcasting it and saying it's going to make it come out of your TV, and then people at home called in to say, I can smell the onion, I can smell the coffee. Because I reckon on that day, a young Uri Geller was watching and got his entire career started. That was his entire career right there.
Or I thought of the Uri Geller story and thought, I know what I'll say. One of those two things, definitely. Okay. And Dave, that leaves you.
Oh, man, I have to go with Marsh. I was just absolutely blown away by the idea that a load of people smelled stuff in their houses and were like, I'm going to ring someone. That's like, this is important today.
It sounds like your act.
Yeah, it does a bit. I was, when you said that, I was literally, I could do that. I could do that. Like, yeah. I don't know how good a magic trick that is. Hey, can you smell stuff? Maybe.
I also love that it's I'm in my house and I'm sure I can smell coffee. The only logical explanation is that it's coming out of the television. I best call the BBC. I'm going to check to see whether my wife's put a pot of coffee on. No, I'll call the Director General first. And if it's not him, then I'll check the kitchen.
Brilliant. Well, the correct answer, Bryce, is 2. The BBC aired a piece and viewers insisted they had actually experienced smell-o-vision. It reminds me, like it does with Marsh, of when thousands of people would ring in to say their clock or watch had suddenly started working again thanks to Uri Geller. Can anyone tell me the almost pun-like name of his one and only film?
Who?
Not Uri Geller.
Oh, right. You threw me there completely.
Well, it was called Scent of Mystery, and it was an abysmal failure.
Is it? That's just saying a thing. I mean, that is just describing it. There's no play on word. There's no double meaning there. It's just one meaning. That's a single entendre.
I thought you were going to say
idea.
Little Spoon.
It was like the Avatar of its time, where people, you're going to buy that DVD? Nah, it's not. You don't get the effects, do you? So what's the point?
Remarkably, this terrible invention had a cheaper competitor around the same time. So Laub called his Smell-O-Vision. Anybody suggest names for the competitor?
The Whiff-O-Matic.
That's brilliant. Any others?
How am I going to top the Whiff-O-Matic? Like, of course there's no others.
I'm not even sure the actual answer tops that. Well, I'll tell you what the answer is. It was called Aromarama.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Pretty solid. And whilst Smell-O-Vision did, in fact, emit smells from each individual seat, Aromarama's advantage was that it just infused the air conditioning, which was a much less expensive way to do it. Laub did have very, very tight pathological attention to detail, and after the scent was emitted, he would then program it to emit a neutral scent. A scent to neutralize that first one, so they get the first. Just really, really massively overcomplicated and expensive. Okay, question 2. This is for Marsh. In 1980, the executive producer of a local Boston news station was fired after playing an April Fool's joke on the viewers. What was it? Is it 1? He commissioned a news report saying that a hill in Milton, Boston, had suddenly become a volcano and was spewing ash and lava. He used footage from the recent Mount St. Helens eruption to bolster the report, and the report claimed that a geological chain reaction from Mount St. Helens was to blame. Hundreds of people fled their homes, and he was sacked the next day. Or is it 2? He commissioned a report that a local man had successfully split the atom using only household appliances and a small piece of cork. The report contained an interview with a purported scientist wearing a lab coat who said that no one should try and replicate the experiment due to the danger of nuclear explosion. The slightly over-enthusiastic Milton sheriff saw the report, immediately recognised the danger his townspeople were in, and triggered a mass evacuation strategy that had been put in place for the Cold War. Sirens went off and infrastructure swung into action for a whole hour before realisation dawned. Or was it 3? He instructed the technical team for the morning news report to slowly decrease the audio output level across a 1-hour period. In his mind, viewers would gradually increase the volume of their televisions to compensate. At the end of 1 hour, the on-air talent stated, "We've heard that some of you are having difficulties with the programme volume." Then the levels were suddenly changed to the maximum technically achievable and played a sting shouting April Fool with some sound effects including sirens and screaming. The trick was so effective that 1 viewer started fitting. I don't know why that's funny. 3 fainted, and there were more than 50 reports of people screaming and dropping whatever they were carrying or holding to the floor. So, Marsh, is it the eruption, the atom splitting using household appliances, or the sudden volume prank?
Well, this is not one I'm familiar with, so you've got me there. I like the idea that they could have been confused by a volcano, that they might have thought, actually, that isn't Mount St. Helens, that's just round the corner from my house. I like that idea, but I don't think it's that. The idea of splitting the atom, I think that would get confusing with a Boston accent. It'd be like splitting the atom, and it would... You'd think there's a guy called Adam who's on a real issue.
Do that accent again, sorry, Mark.
Never again. Not the one and only time. But I think it's that last one, that idea of slowly turning down the volume. Because I love it, because it's that kind of gaslighting on a mass scale of people, which I'm a big fan of. And my favorite way to gaslight people is to tell them that actually they've been using the term gaslight wrong the entire time, and actually it means something completely different. And we all know that. How have you not realised you're using this wrong the entire time? We've all thought it's really strange that you're misusing the term gaslight just to really fuck with them. So I'm going to go with that third one.
All right, brilliant. Who else wants to have a stab at this? Bryce, what do you think?
I'm going to go with number 2, right? Because this happened around the same time. The Boy Scout made a nuclear reactor in his shed in his backyard. And during the Cold War, people were very much on heightened awareness of people being able to split atoms. And it strikes me that, as people are just fucking stupid. So of course they thought that you could split atoms using some cork. Of course. And your KitchenAid and sewing machine. Sure. Yeah, that's my choice.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bryce. Dave?
I'm going to agree with Bryce. I immediately loved the idea that the entire problem occurred because one cop didn't get a joke. And he's like, you what? I've met the people in my town. I don't trust those motherfuckers at all. Sound the alarm. It's brilliant.
Fantastic. And Kat?
Yeah, I was going to go with 2 on the basis that everyone would have been on high alert round about then.
All right, brilliant.
Can I say, there was one detail that I really love that I forgot to mention, which is in the third one. You say there were reports of up to 50 people screaming. And I just love that detail. That someone screamed and thought, I best report that. You never know. You never can be too careful.
Are you suggesting that might imply it's not the correct answer? So the correct answer is it was the first one, the volcano. He commissioned a news report that a small local landmark hill had become volcanic. This is known as the Great Blue Hill Eruption prank. Although the news report was finalised with the reporter holding up a card stating this was an April Fool joke, it was too late. Residents had already begun fleeing their homes and emergency services were overwhelmed with calls from concerned residents.
Did they think they couldn't see a volcano?
I know. I know. Just look out the window, man.
Look out the window.
Look out the window. There's no time. Get out.
The thing is, what we know about volcanoes is those people who were in historic volcano explosions, the people who did stay around to look out the window end up getting covered in fucking lava, and we've still found them now. So it makes sense. You run when you hear of the start of a volcano. You just get out of there.
Right. Well, you get out of your house.
He stopped for a wank, though, which I think is very laudable.
Stopped for a wank, or he never stopped wanking. I think that guy just found his really specific fetish. He'd been looking his entire life, and he's like, "Volcano, you say? Hang on a second."
I know he's assumed that he's gone. I can't outrun it.
Oh dear. The producer was fired for failing to exercise good news judgment. Right, David, it's your question now. I'm 2 for 2, by the way. Just letting you know, 2 for 2.
No one likes a bragger.
In 1972, 23-year-old John Shields, who was the education officer for Yorkshire's Flamingo Park Zoo, played a prank which he was in a unique position to fulfill. So which of these did he do, David? Is it 1, he obtained a sizable sample of elephant semen and added it to the ice cream maker in the staff canteen without realising the target machine was actually destined for the public canteen? He only revealed this fact 17 years later when he left his employment. When interviewed about it after the story broke, several canteen staff, former and current, stated they remembered that day because so many people had commented on the unusually strong vanilla taste, although there were no actual complaints. Or is it number 2? During a visit by a party of 7-year-old school children on April the 1st, he faked an attack by a lion. He had one of the zookeepers dress up in a fake costume and leap out at him from behind a large bush adjacent to the lion enclosure whilst roaring. They grappled on the floor for a few moments, and of course, everyone realised it was fake. At least the adults did. The children were in various states of distress, and some had run off. It took 30 minutes to round up the last of the traumatised lost children, most of whom were, quite reasonably, hiding. Of course, he was sacked.
I believe there were reports of up to 50 children screaming that
day. Or is it 3? He knew that colleagues would be hunting for the Loch Ness Monster on April the 1st. He put a frozen elephant seal in the boot of his car and made a 760-mile round trip to put it in the loch for them to discover. To ensure they found the elephant seal, he also phoned in a tip anonymously, indicating he had spotted the Loch Ness Monster and giving a location. So, Dave, is it the semen ice cream, the fake lion attack traumatizing children, or the long haul monster dump?
I'm going to have to go with D, all of the above. I reckon he just had a really busy day, and he was like, I've got so many ideas, guys. Like, oh my God, we're going to have such a time. And he had to do it all before 12 o'clock as well, which when you think about it, is no mean feat. I don't know. I like the idea that a load of people drank elephant jizz and one of them knew what it was but couldn't admit it, because how would you explain? You know that. You know, you're like, yeah, no, it tastes weird, guys. Yeah. How do I tell them? Like,
this really takes me back to my gap year.
Oh, remember those days? I reckon I probably would go with I like the idea that he just had a fight with a lion. I like the idea that his initial plan was just to come out with a lion and have a scare, but that he'd had a disagreement with the other dude and they just had a proper fist fight as the situation played out. Yeah, I'm going to go with he jumped out as a lion and that was his play.
Okay, so you're going for number 2. Thank you very much indeed, Dave. Who else? Kat, what do you think?
I like the idea of it being a big willy Mr. Whippy, but I think it has got to be having a fight with the lion, like, because it a chance to terrify a lot of kids at once. You're not gonna pass that up.
It's difficult to pass up. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. All right, Bryce.
So I very much like the idea of number 1 coming straight out of Andy's mind. And it makes me very much feel apprehensive about going and getting shakes with him at any point in the future. So with that in mind, I'm actually going to go with number 3. I think this person was very diligent about this elaborate prank they were going to pull and had to drive the 700 plus miles, you said, in order to plant this monster and call in the tip. That just rings like one of those situations where this person has so many opportunities to sit back and be like, wait, am I really going to fucking do this? Yeah, no, I'm going for it. And he's still persisted, and I admire that, so I'm going with number 3.
I love it. Okay, Marsh.
Well, I mean, I'm with Bryce on the first one, that if that came out of Andy's mind, not only was it a large sample of elements of elephant jizz, but also that nobody complained, and he had to invent that detail that nobody complained. That's an Andy Wilson embellishment right there.
That's a very niche takeaway there.
It tasted even more like vanilla.
More like vanilla, absolutely. So I'm not sure it's number 1. Number 3. I think this has come from Andy's mind as well. And the clue there is he took a frozen elephant seal, which no one seemed to bat an eyelid that this guy had a frozen elephant seal. One, not just an elephant seal, but a dead one frozen. He just had that and went, right, actually, now I've got this. All the pieces are falling into place. I'm going to drive 700 miles because I know my colleagues are going to be hunting the Loch Ness Monster because it's April Fool's Day. Every bit of that is fucking ludicrous, and not one of you seem bothered by that. So I'm going with the lion because that third one is the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard in every single detail possible.
Marsh always has this talent for pointing out why shit I believe is stupid, and like he's just done it again. I was like, you could do that. Yeah, you could do that. Loch Ness isn't like the deepest of all the lakes, but no, screw it.
All right. Well, Marsh, I wonder if your analysis of the situation, which has been so reliable in the past, finding holes in the way I've constructed the false answers. Let's see if it's played out for you this time. The correct answer is number 3.
I'm never believing anything Marsh says again. The world is flat.
hang on. So that means that this man was driving with a frozen seal. This thing had to weigh 900 pounds in the back of his vehicle.
50.
Yeah. He had to stop for fuel multiple times on this drive and contemplate if he's really doing this, and he still did it. He's like, man, this is going to be the best prank. I should get a Gatorade. This is just going to be the best prank ever. No holes in it. I'm going to blow everybody's mind. Yes.
I think it's not even that he drove 700 miles with a frozen elephant seal. What he did was he started to drive 700 miles with a frozen elephant seal, and by the end of it, he'd driven 700 miles with a dead elephant seal that had defrosted. There was a period in time where that stopped being a frozen elephant seal.
Oh.
Well, an elephant seal had recently died. He shaved off its whiskers, padded its cheeks with stones, and froze it for a week.
Wait,
then he put it in his car and made the minimum 15-hour round trip to drop it off.
Did he say he filled its cheeks with stones?
Yeah, because obviously the researchers work for a zoo, and he wanted to disfigure so it would not appear to be a seal.
I'm just thankful that this is
a really clear idea of what the Loch Ness Monster looks like.
Indeed.
And it's definitely not an elephant seal.
I understand this now. This was only the first time he did that trip, and the second time was to dispose of a body the perfect way. It all makes sense.
Well, they never found the seal.
See, it's a really interesting point about it defrosting, because I was sat thinking, like, oh yeah, he's frozen it so it would be more buoyant, so it'll float like a dead seal ice cube, and it'll be easy to find. Like, oh, Loch Ness Monster, it's right there. It's not to preserve it. It's not, makes more sense.
This animal was 9 feet long and weighed around 350 pounds. On the morning of the 31st of March, he phoned in a tip to the hotel where the team of intrepid monster hunters were enjoying a leisurely breakfast. The hotel manager informed them of the discovery. Upon inspection, when they saw the creature, they couldn't identify it and thought it was a contender for a new species. Meanwhile, the press arrived, and the following day, April the 1st, newspapers around the world declared that son of Nessie had been found. Now, There were a number of unintended consequences.
Really?
I want to highlight one of them. So choose the correct answer from the following list. Is it 1? The animal was stolen, butchered and partially eaten by an adventurous group of Scottish gourmands, later known by the affectionate title the Invernesses? Or is it 2? According to the hotel manager, the researchers were thrilled to bits by the discovery. They contacted the zoo manager, Don Robinson, and he asked them to bag it and bring it back to Flamingo Land for study. The local police in Inverness were enraged that these English researchers had stolen Nessie and radioed ahead. A high-speed police chase ensued, which the police obviously won, and the green and scaly creature was taken to Dunfermline for study. Or is it 3? The general manager of Edinburgh Zoo called in to identify it, immediately recognised it for what it was, and punched one of the innocent researchers, breaking his nose. Or is it 4? Something else. Kat.
I've got to go first. Somebody tried to eat it. I mean, there's fucking haggis in Scotland. Like, they'll fucking eat anything up there.
David.
I'm gonna have to go. I can't remember which option it was, but with the police chase, was that number 2?
That was option 2. Yeah.
I mean, if I love the idea that the Scottish were like, I don't know what that fucking is, but it's mine. Which is, I respect that attitude.
Brilliant. Thank you. Bryce.
I'm going to go D, something else completely, only because I want all of those to have come from Andy's mind, and I want the actual answer to be even crazier than the 3 options available.
And Marsh.
See, I'd be tempted to go for D for similar reasons to Bryce, that they all came from Andy's mind. But then I want the real option to be something utterly mundane, like something utterly boring. And Andy thought, no, this is an opportunity for me to invent a story about a police chase with some irate Scotsmen trying to get some green, scaly thing back.
I have to admit something, Marsh. I was very tempted to make up an entire story for this round out of whole cloth in order to play the April Fool's prank, but I didn't do that. The correct answer is the police chase. The Scots were absolutely fuming that Nessie was being stolen by the English, and to arrest the perpetrators, they cited a 1933 Act of Parliament that prohibits the removal of unidentified creatures from Loch Ness.
Why? I don't understand why the researchers, like, presumably there were blues and taters, and like, it was obvious that they wanted them to fall over, and the researchers have gone, fuck that, I'm taking my chances. Just...
That's a very good point, because for them, they were just transporting a thing home, the police came to pull them over, and that's when they decided to turn it into a chase. It wasn't a chase until they made that decision.
I think it was just an extended prank by the dude who put it there. Like, the researchers were on the phone to him and he was like, get it home. Get it home. Now. What could it...
Oh, brilliant. So we finished this round, Cat, with you. On April the 1st in 1976, beloved, slightly racist, slightly homophobic, slightly misogynist British astronomer and TV personality Sir Patrick Moore perpetrated a prank on the nation which had people jumping up and down. What was it? Is it 1? During a broadcast on BBC Radio 2, he announced that a unique planetary alignment would happen between Jupiter and Pluto. He said this was an example of the Jovian-Plutonian gravitational effect. It meant that the powerful combined gravity of the two planets would temporarily decrease gravity on Earth and encourage people to jump in the air at precisely 9:47 that morning to experience the floating sensation fully. Or is it 2? During an episode of The Sky at Night, a TV show that he hosted consistently for over 50 years, interrupted only once by an incident with a goose egg, he announced that tectonic plates in the southern hemisphere had been shifted by the moon's gravity as it passed through its closest Earth orbit. This created great risk of cataclysmic earthquakes unless corrected, and he asked for the nation's help to play their part in correcting it by jumping up and down together to help shake the plates back into position. Or is it 3? While appearing on the popular science show Tomorrow's World, he told viewers that jumping up a couple of times at night and stretching your fingertips toward the stars at the apogee meant that, for your hands, time would slow down just a little bit, enough to have a beneficial effect on the health of their hands and wrists in the future if repeated every day. Though it was announced as a prank straight after the bit, people continued doing it for a couple of years. Cat, is it the floating sensation thanks to Jupiter and Pluto, shaking the southern hemisphere back to normal, or protection from arthritis by slowing down time?
Can we go back? What was the incident with the goose egg?
Well, 1, who eats goose eggs? 2, he ate goose eggs, and he ate a bad one, and he had to take a night off.
Right. So how you described it was he did this show consistently for 50 years, interrupted only once by a goose egg. And I thought he was interrupted by other things, but only one of those things was a goose egg. Like the question was, just a quick question. How many times did he get interrupted by a goose egg? Oh, just one was it? Okay, good. I was a bit concerned. Like millions of other interruptions, but only one of them was goose egg related.
All right, Kat, you've had plenty of thinking time now. Come on. Don't press me for an answer.
I think it's the planetary alignment and the potential of floating.
You're going with the first one, the Jovian Plutonian gravitational effect. Okay, thank you. Dave?
Maybe I've got a false memory, but part of me feels like I was there and I was jumping, so I'm going to go with number 2.
You're going
1976.
Oh, not 1996. I misheard. I was definitely jumping, and I'm still going to go with number 2.
I mean, you don't look 45 if that's of any
Thank you.
use to you, you know. Okay, thank you. Bryce?
So I take issue with the second one because that implies that there was a problem that people felt like they could solve that would actually help other people, and they would have contributed to that. I just don't think that would have happened,
This was in England,
especially in the 1970s. Was that?
This was in England.
then very much more so the case. So with that in mind, I think I'm going to go with number 3 because it's the most intuitive, because people are like, oh, if I just jump up and down for a couple of hours per night, I'm going to reverse the aging process. Sign me up. Is there a newsletter? That one rings true to me.
Perfect. Okay, and Kat?
You asked me first.
I meant Marsh.
Easy to do this. Fair. No, it's fair. I do it all the time as well, to be honest. I agree that it wasn't the shaking the plates in the Southern Hemisphere. I don't think, yes, we're great. The British people, we're very magnanimous, we're very generous, and we've done nothing but good for all of the Southern Hemisphere throughout all of recorded history. Nothing bad has ever been done in the Southern Hemisphere by any British person, but I still don't think it's that one. I don't think it's the third one, because I don't know that there's that many people worried about their wrist health, and I'm not sure why they're so why he thought millions of people would be worried about their wrist health. So I reckon it's that floating gravity type thing.
All right. I think everybody's had a go there, haven't they?
Cat's had 2 goes, technically.
Okay, well, the correct answer is number 1. The Jovian-Plutonian gravitational effect had people jumping up and down all over the country, and soon after 9:47 a.m, numerous reports were made to the BBC of the experience. One person called in and said they and their 11 friends had been wafted from their chairs and orbited gently around the room.
Yeah, and a dozen people called in to say they could smell coffee and onions, which was
correct.
We didn't even ask this time.
I've been the same day.
The BBC just get a lot of those calls now. It's weird. It's weird.
Calling the BBC and just spouting shit at them does seem to be a national pastime.
Patrick Moore was a UKIP supporter, and in an interview for the Radio Times magazine said the BBC was being ruined by women. He said, the trouble is that the BBC now is run by women, and it shows soap operas, cooking, quizzes, kitchen sink plays. You wouldn't have had that in the golden days. He also stopped watching Doctor Who and Star Trek once females were being cast as commanders. Moore also
Andy,
thought...
you introduced him as beloved.
But despite his flaws, part of the institution...
He wore a monocle and played the xylophone, so he could get away with it. This is British.
Literally about to say those words. That, and he picked the Sea of Tranquility as the landing place for the first trip to the moon.
Did he?
That was him. Yeah.
That was him. Well.
See, I can love sexist as you like,
hate him for all the other shit.
Sexist as you like, as long as you're picking it like an interstellar parking spot well.
Moore also used to boast, probably accurately, that he was the only person alive who had met Orville Wright, Yuri Gagarin, and Neil Armstrong. So that's better. And that brings us to the end of round 2. Well done. Congratulations, everyone. Yay. All right. We're going to finish shortly. They've been very, very busy in the chat, by the way. Very busy indeed. Several people knew the answer to the Patrick Moore one by the looks of it as well, by the way. So in round 3, it's called Pitch by Poxy Podcast. And we'll try and do 2 rounds of this. The order we're going to go in is Marsh, you're going first, then David, then Bryce, then Kat. And we'll go from the top of the list and see how far down we get. So we would like you to create a 45-second promo for the following podcast. It's theatre types discussing camelids, Far Eastern varieties of pasta and bell ringing, also known as the Drama Llama Ramen Ding Dong for short. Start when ready.
Well, there's a lot of podcasts out there these days, and I know a lot of people think there's too many of these subjects are too covered. And you might think the topic of camelids, discussing various types of wheaty Italian carbs, that's been done to death. You don't need another of those podcasts in your life. That's where you're wrong. The Drama Llama Pasta Ding Dong thing, I forget.
Drama Llama Ramen Ding Dong.
The Drama Llama Ramen Ding Dong is the podcast for you. It's got all of your absolutely fantastic, the news you need about llamas. Who doesn't need news about llamas? I think every one of us needs a little bit more llama in their life. You need a little bit more ramen in your life and a little bit more drama in your life. Let's face it, we're all in lockdown. Things are boring. But if you can have a drama with a llama while eating ramen, who doesn't want that?
Yes. Very nice, Marsh. Points galore coming at you there. Very good. Okay, next we're going to David. David, you are going to promote a true crime serial exploring whether, but mostly how, Marsh caused COVID.
I mean, all right, I'm doing a fact-based podcast. That's an entirely understandable play. So first off, guys, you've already seen the kind of absolute crap Marsh has been spouting. I can't remember what it was about. Oh, what was that lie he told earlier? I really wish I had a better memory. Yeah, no, the one about which question was it? Oh, yeah, it was the seal. He thought the seal, it was the seal. That's the first clue, guys. Seal, COVID. I don't know what the link is, but there's going to be one, and I'm going to find it in the next 10 seconds. Nope. Either way, my point is the podcast will be based on facts of that level to guarantee the proof that Marsh did indeed start COVID. Also, he told me not to tell you. All will be revealed on the podcast itself. Brilliant. I really hope that was 45 seconds.
That's brilliant. That last one was from Anonymous. The first one was from Skeptical Gumby. We've got one now from somebody called Andy's Shirt Makes My Eyes Go Funny. And this one's for Bryce.
Which is weird that they were already called
about law enforcement officers trying to catch escaped dogs, aka police desperately searching for leads. 45 seconds. Go.
The world of podcasting is so very saturated nowadays. But you know what is truly, truly saturated? All of the neighborhood fire hydrants from all of the dogs. And we need to get to the bottom of this, and how we do that is by deep, rigorous investigative journalism into the cops that indeed are chasing down these dogs. And we're exploring all of the different angles because there's a lot of stakeholders, right? We have the dogs themselves, we have the neighbors, we have the fire hydrants. A lot of them are sentient and don't want to be pissed on by dogs. And then we have the cops themselves who are doing the chasing. So with all of this and so many different angles, you will be amazed to listen to the new podcast called Who Let the Dogs Out.
Very nice. Very nice. Well done, sir. Well done. Okay, the next one. Oh, they're all changing positions here, but we'll try and keep on top of it. We've got one from Sardar. Sardar? Is that you, Sardar? And this is for... We'll give this one to Kat, actually. Homeopathic Rationality featuring Alex Jones and Richard Dawkins. You have 45 seconds, starting now.
See, the problem with many podcasts is that they tend to go on far too long. This homeopathic podcast lasts literally 3 seconds. And all the information that you need to know about homeopathy will seep into your brain in those moments. Everyone's got time for this, so why not get a homeopathic dose of homeopathic knowledge?
Fantastic, thank you. Very good.
What I love is that Alex Jones just didn't come in. It's like, no, he just happens to be presenting it, but it's not about. He's not central to the point.
I immediately forgot.
It's
a lot to take in. It is.
Okay,
it might have been Alex Jones from the One
now.
Show. You don't know.
So here's one from Igor. Hi, Igor. Igor says, my mom explains recent conspiracies she found on Facebook and how they're all of Satan, starring my mom as soon as she figures out how to press record. You have 45 seconds, starting now.
Wow, I mean, Igor's mum, she's worth a listen to. You know, she tells some stories. Mainly about the devil, and she tells stories about other things and finds ways to talk about the devil during them. And all I'm saying is it is riveting. So I would really tune in. It's not going to be on long because she doesn't know how to do it, but you're going to have a great time watching.
Thanks. Okay, I've lost track of who's gone where. So, Marsh, we're going to go back to you for this one. The one I've got a few to choose from here, and we're just going to do one more each now because we run out of time. I'm going to give you this one. So this is from Gerald. Mormons, hormones, and torments. Go.
It's very easy these days to talk about Mormonism. Everybody's got a podcast about Mormonism. It's simple. I mean, there's nothing surprising in there. But what can be surprising is talking about
Marsh.
No, there isn't any good ones, but there is actually one good one, and it is Mormons, hormones, and torment. Because what we know is that the Mormons, we talk a lot about Mormon men. We don't talk a lot about Mormon women. We know that Mormons are sexist and view women as irrational. Irrational, why? Because of their hormones. That's what we're going to be looking at. Those hormones are tormenting Mormon men. That is the point of this show. And that's why this makes this the best Mormon show out there. All these other shows, they try and dazzle you with facts, but really all that happens is the host just spends about 20 to 25 minutes at the top reading you his resume. No one needs to hear that. This isn't about the host. This is about those evil Mormon women and what they want to do to you. So tune in to Mormon Hormones Torments.
Very good. Very nice. Thank you very much.
It's much easier when I can just turn it into a personal attack on someone else.
All right. There's one on
I'm here to make your life easier, Mark.
There's one from Paul, also known as Picticule here. Hi, Paul. How you doing? I don't know what that is on the right, so I can't read that one out. It looks like a candelabra. Psychics with a something. So I can't do that one. Unlucky. Gray the Earthling says, and this is for Bryce, all the evidence that proves international racism doesn't exist. 1,000-part podcast presented by the UK government. Go.
Have you ever looked around and wondered why it is that most of the industrialized countries speak English as a primary or secondary language? Such a question requires a deep dive, at least 1,000 parts. And in order to really investigate and look at this, we will begin by understanding that English is indeed the superior language. And the people who largely speak it are indeed of a certain skin color who happens to be superior as well, following the dictates and directions of government that is obviously the most superior in all of the world. And we really want to understand exactly how much superior it is, but by also, inviting people on to join us who are all look exactly like us to talk about how awesome it is. And never, ever pay attention to any possible damage that could be caused by it, because that doesn't exist. Those are attacks.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well do. Thank you very much indeed. Well done, Bryce. And Bryce, yours will be the final one, which means that we didn't get...
Great ending.
We didn't get to 3 middle-aged white straight dudes explain how ancient Asian medicine works.
We did do that Japanese burger bit, and that was essentially that podcast. If anything, we did it.
Yeah, it was a lot like that, to be fair. The Michael Marshall Guide to Looking Young Forever, co-written with Brian Cox. We didn't get to Cat's Guide to Sex Toys to be Wary Of, or to Incel, Your Guide to a Fulfilling Life After Taking the Black Pill. I have no idea what that means. There were so many. I'm so sorry we didn't get back to it. Telling Dildonics, Cryptozoologicoin, the podcast for people who want to spot Bigfoot while mining cryptocurrency. That's brilliant. That one's from Sam. So thank you for all your suggestions. I wish we could have got to more of them, but I promise I'll read every single one. And that's it. I'm just going to refer, before we wrap up, to my anonymous co-host to find out what the scores are. Just be a sec.
Did Andy really make the choice to end the broadcast on the white American talking about how great white
racism
supremacy is?
Yeah, it's a common thing.
That's the choice. That's okay. Yeah. All right.
Also,
and the winner,
white American who had no context for what the question was actually talking about, which is the UK government report, which announced there is no institutional racism in Britain.
Right. And what's really cool too is this is going to stand as the most recent InKredulous episode for the next 3 years too. So that's great.
And the winner. I've just changed the winner. And the winner, reigning champion of InKredulous, is Michael Marshall.
Yes, you're pointing at me, Andy, but I'm not there on everyone else's screen. So
you.
That is.
You've never won. Dave Anick! Yay! Dave Anick. So I want to say thank you for watching, thank you for participating, and remember to swing by the Lock-ins Razor at SitP Online after the show for a bit of afterglow. Thank you so much to the technical team who do such an amazing job, and the moderators for keeping it sweet in the chat. And thanks to our production assistant, Rachel Waller. We appreciate all of you equally. Next Thursday, it's Elliot Higgins talking about how to hunt Russian spies from the comfort of your own home. And remember, you can show your financial appreciation at sitp.online/donate, or you can like some of our videos on the YouTube channel, or you can just join me in thanking our amazing panel: David Anick, Bryce Blankenagel, Kat Ford, and of course, Marsh. We'll see you next time we play InKredulous. Say goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.